Hi guys, so this is part two of the interview between Marc Lamont and Coleman Hughes. I hope you enjoyed the first one as I did, and the second part is also as interesting. So watch it and let me know what you think.
And then on the second
Well,
point,
okay, can I pause you on the first one just for clarity, and then
you
I'll give
can,
you
sure.
space to answer the second one. The on the first one, as a matter of fact, let's do this. Let's pause and take a commercial. The thing I had planned to do next, I'm not going to do. This is also for my producers. I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about those 2 points you just made. All right, everybody, stay with me. We got much more coming up. Coleman Hughes here on Black News Tonight. Welcome back to Black News Tonight. I'm continuing my conversation with Coleman Hughes. We're talking about reparations and whether they are both morally necessary, and hopefully in this last bit we'll talk a little bit about whether they're politically viable. This idea, though, that black people are far enough away from the damage of it that it's no longer a reasonable complaint or reasonable critique of the system to say that that slavery or the impact of slavery it still lingers today. Again, that is contradicted by the facts on the ground. There is a direct relationship between mass incarceration. If we look at the pattern from the end of slavery to the liberation, the emancipation of slaves, to the creation of black codes, to the creation of the convict lease system, to the creation of the modern prison industrial complex, to the creation of laws to fortify and fill the prisons, we see direct correlations, just as one example, between slavery and mass incarceration, and that has turned into a systemic problem. When you look at things like that, it seems hard to say that there's no connection between the slavery and what we're dealing with today. But I guess my question for you is, if you knew, if we could empirically determine and persuade you that reparations, I'm sorry, if I could persuade you that slavery had a direct impact on the lives of black people today and the prosperity chances of black people today, would you then be pro reparations?
That's a good question. So I think obviously the past influences the present in all kinds of complicated ways. I'm not denying that that's true. What I am saying is that when you look at the specifics, usually slavery gets blamed for things that often had nothing to do with slavery. So you mentioned mass incarceration. I would have to disagree. I mean, mass incarceration was a phenomenon that started in the late 70s. Before the late 70s, there was no mass incarceration. And it happened for complicated reasons relating to, bad incentives on the part of prosecutors, tough on crime laws. There's a lot of people still alive today that are to blame for mass incarceration. We can't just blame the legacy of slavery. There are people to be held accountable, and I do think this is one way in which the simplistic sort of blaming everything on slavery in a weird way actually lets a lot of politicians that are doing bad things right now off of the hook. So that's just one example to give here. And then to your second question of, if you could persuade me that there is, I think there's no doubt that slavery has had some impact. It's really hard to say how much, and everyone's individual family story of coming out of slavery into the present is unique, and how different families dealt with it. It's very hard to paint with a broad brush about the extent to which any given person's life trajectory in the present was influenced by slavery. That's a very complicated question.
Well, but that's why we're
But
offering systemic analysis, right? That's what we're saying. It's not about the individual case. It's saying that there are structural factors and structural determinants here, that the reality of black folk writ large is affected by this. But just to be clear, and for time's sake, if I'm understanding you correctly, there actually is no amount of correlation that you would find persuasive enough to support reparations. It's not as if you knew that black people's lives were directly impacted by this, you still would say no to reparations. Is that accurate?
I would, because even if you admit slavery is the root source of the problem, that doesn't imply necessarily that reparations is going to solve those problems. That's actually a fallacy. So for example, if reparations were paid today, tomorrow we would still be living in a country, I would argue, that has unsafe neighborhoods, dysfunctional public schools, poor healthcare, all the problems related to poverty would still exist. And we would be left saying, well, whether they were caused by slavery or not, let's be solution oriented. What does it mean to be problem solvers here, right? Rather than to be stuck in the past in this quixotic quest to have some kind of moral absolution, right? Some closure that is, in my view, not practical, not in the cards, and not going to do anything to solve the kinds of issues people are waking up with every day.
So there's a few things. I mean, it sounds like you're saying that reparations wouldn't stop or wouldn't fix many of the other problems we have in society. That seems like
exactly.
an odd argument.
Yes. Well,
I hear you.
It wouldn't even fix the problem that it's alleged to fix, which is to sort of heal America's soul on the issue of slavery. I don't even think it would do that, let alone solve any of the problems.
But that's not what's alleged.
People are actually.
But hold on. That's fair. But Coleman, that's not what's being argued here, right? The reparations movement is not saying give black people reparations to heal America's soul. I'm not particularly interested in America's soul. I'm interested in my pockets. I'm interested in my community. I'm interested in creating the capacity for black wealth, for black institutions. And so this isn't some abstract moral project for America or fight for America's soul. I would argue America ain't got one. The real issue here is, will this be a proper form of redress? If you take my money and I ask for it back, and you say, well, I would give your money back, but you're just going to spend it poorly anywhere. You're still going to be broke after I give it back. That's not a persuasive argument for not giving me what's mine. The argument for reparations is that it's owed to us. This isn't an act of philanthropy or largesse. This isn't a favor. This is what is owed. And then after you give us what we owe, we will have the capacity to do what is what is best for our community. We'll have the opportunity to institution build, to produce intergenerational wealth, not in some sort of narrow capitalist way, but the idea that we can at least support one another, that we can build things for ourselves. And
also I have a very important another video coming up this Saturday, which is very interesting, and I wish that every single black people living in America watches this upcoming video. For real, people, for real. So check it out on Saturday, next Saturday. So that's it. Until next time, don't forget to subscribe. Ciao ciao.